Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I am joined today by the light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, it's the Popo.
What up, what up, what up?
Back in the building.
Yes, sir.
Working on his first pitch skills, which we'll talk about here in a minute. We're also joined by the light wonder. And I mean, when I say light,
I mean white.
I mean
the
weight,
white wonder.
The weight. He's light and weight wonder. Billy the Savage.
Yes. Good morning, everybody.
He's down 20 pounds, so the light savage, not
Billy.
white
Just don't
savage.
change on us, all right? That's all I ask. Don't change, because I have some coworkers that lost a lot of weight, and they're like a completely different person.
And now
I
now-
like them.
now
I like
they
them
too
better
good.
when they were
Jerked
chubby.
everyone.
Yeah, now they too good.
Yeah, I like
you're
them better
not
when they
fat
were
no
chubby.
more, so all of a sudden you just too good for everybody.
I was just talking to my coworker about that. I was like, man, I like fat you better. He was like, what? I was like, I just do.
Yeah, you just too good for everybody.
Just judging your food. You eat chicken
Yeah.
wings. Ugh.
Ugh.
I only eat cauliflower chicken wings.
It's just too much. He like fully embraced the CrossFit life. He's got like CrossFit shoes and everything's like CrossFit. That's all he talks about. And he's like,
Epic wad this morning, bruh.
he did. That's what he talks about. He's
How
like, I had
many
to hit my
carbs are in
wad
that?
this morning so I could come on kick it with you guys. I'm like, okay, bro. Like fat you is way better.
And
To go back to
how
being
many
fat.
carbs are in that, bro?
Yeah.
Seriously? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's just-
what's your
it's just too
macros?
much.
How many
Too much. His
macros?
whole personality change.
What's your
I crack a
macros
joke,
at?
you don't even laugh.
What are your macros at today?
Yeah, which I think all that's fake anyway.
I
don't
still
know.
eat Chinese food. I still eat pizza.
Bro, me and Jones have a routine, all right? Monday, we eat Chinese food. Tuesday, we eat Chipotle. Wednesday, we eat Chinese food. Thursday, we eat Chipotle. And Friday, you guessed it, we eat Chinese food. We've done that for the past 3 weeks.
Bro, mine is
Dang, that's like...
see, look at Billy. Look at Skinny Billy is coming out to judge now.
That just sounds like my stomach is like weighing down.
See, look at he already brand
It's not
new.
bad. We
He
get rice and like Szechuan chicken, and you could eat Chipotle somewhat healthy.
No, Chipotle's bomb for sure.
Billy's
Yeah.
like,
So we're not like
low
stacking
sodium,
on like,
please.
Nah.
Low sodium. Mine is usually pokey, and then it goes.
What?
What do you mean? See, here you go. The Mister. I don't even know
What
what an
is a
acai bowl is.
Is that what a pokey is?
I'm just putting this out there. It's called poke, but not a big
Oh.
deal.
Excuse
I
me.
thought he was about to eat a Pokemon.
Someone's
I
gonna
didn't know.
comment or something. So
See,
call it
that's
Poke.
Skinny Billy right there talking. Actually, let me correct you guys.
I'm like, do we have Skinny Billy talking or do we have Big Billy talking? So yeah.
Wait, real quick. What's a poke?
It's like Chipotle, but with raw. We talked about
Like
this
sushi
before.
and stuff.
Like sushi. We talked about this before. It's bomb. No,
Okay.
don't make
what's
that
a poke? We've literally had this discussion.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
It's the same guy that said acai bowl. What is that?
Nah, acai is good. I get down some
now
acai.
he's making his own acai bowls.
Yeah, homemade acai.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Straight up Columbus, Ohio acai.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So I usually
That's
do
where it all
poke.
comes from.
I usually do Chipotle, and then I usually do like a what do they call a bento box. So those are my three. I rotate between those three. You don't know what a bento box is either, huh? Nah. Oh Lord Jesus!
Y'all eat weird. We got chicken burgers, pizza,
we got work
normal
to do.
stuff. Y'all be like, oh, we got this poke ball.
Oh Lord!
Is that your California accent?
It is my California accent.
Okay.
Well, I just
I'm gonna hop on my jet ski at 3:00 and avoid the earthquake.
Well, I just got done being grilled by Billy and AJ for not having enough energy in last week's intro. But y'all gotta understand something. Your boy was,
here we go.
Your boy was gassed. I was tired. I'm not gonna lie though. One of my buddies texted me. He was like, "Bro, are you sick?" I'm like, "No, why?" He's like, "Bro, the way you sounded on the intro this morning of the podcast, I was like, Billy's like, our ratings just tanked."
Yeah, look,
No,
Billy
I was tired, y'all. Hey, even Michael Jordan had bad days. You know what I'm saying?
So you're Michael Jordan in this situation. Oh, okay.
That's all I got from this entire story is that he's Michael Jordan.
Am I that chubby manager guy that was kind of the bad guy in the documentary? Is that...
I was gonna say Tony Kukoc, but you can go for that guy if you want.
Yeah, okay.
Oh man, but anyways, man, I was gassed last week. I'm still tired, but I feel a lot better this week, and I'm back in studio. So last week,
Yes,
you got to
sir.
realize, last week when we hopped on the podcast, I literally, I'm not lying to y'all. We family on this podcast. I literally rolled out of bed and rolled into the chair and turned on Zoom and got on the podcast, bro. I was
Yeah,
freaking gassed, bro.
Before we hit record, I was like, "You want to like turn a light on or open the shade?" He was like, "Yeah, man."
Bro, that was
Just wake up.
morning voice, bro. That was my first words. My first words were with you guys on this podcast.
I could smell his breath through the microphone. I was like, "Ooh."
Y'all should feel special. Y'all should feel special that my first words were with you guys in the morning.
Yeah, we feel special, all right.
Whatever, man. AJ cheats because he's 3 hours ahead of us, but whatever.
I do. Look, I'm not gonna lie, I got it made. Sometimes y'all be like, "Yo, let's record at 7." I'm like, 7, 8, not yet, 10 p.m. Like, bro, I got a 2-year-old. Like, I can't do.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, we gonna start doing that more often, bro. We need to even this out because I feel like
Hey, yo,
we
let's
the
record at
ones
10
getting
p.m. 2 a.m. your time.
hosed.
AJ,
I feel like Billy and I are the ones getting hosed. But
I mean, y'all, I won't lie here. Y'all sacrifice. Y'all get up at like 5 a.m. some mornings and like, all right, let's get it.
golly,
But you know,
early.
we got to make it happen. By the way, congrats. Was it anniversary or wife's birthday?
Wifey's birthday.
Tell the wifey I said happy
We'll
belated.
do. We took the skis out. Well, they weren't my skis. It was more like we rented some skis.
No, I my jet skis and avoid the earthquake.
I just wanted to see what that felt like to say we took the skis out, but we really rented some skis.
Jet skis.
Yeah, I held on. I didn't fall into the water. You know, I got this, boo. Was out there like that's why I don't have a motorcycle though, because I would kill myself. 'Cause I
Oh,
love
without a
speed.
doubt.
I love speed.
Without a doubt.
I asked
Yep.
the dude, hey, so how fast can I get this thing up to? Like, how fast can I top out on this? He was like, yeah, you good.
Challenge accepted.
So, but yeah, it was good, man. Good times. We went out, and I made a video yesterday on our IG. If you follow my IG page, and I really talked about just a self-reflection. I didn't post anything on the IG. Probably about. I mean, I think I made like a tweet, but that's about it. And but I didn't really make any videos for like a week and a half. And I think there was a lot of things between traveling. Between spending time with family and then a lot of things just going on in the world, man, I just need to take a break and just kind of sit back and just reset. And, man, what a week to reset in. I mean, we talk about, first, I know we joke around, we laugh and play on this podcast, but, 13 Marines lost their lives last week in Kabul from a terrorist attack. And, man, I think one of the things that was more surprising about that terrorist attack than anything was the ages of almost all the Marines that lost their lives. They were young, man. They were like 20, 21 years old. And in that video, I made the example of, Saturday morning, I woke up and I ended up being off because I got called into work early on that morning. But long story short, I ended up being off Saturday morning unexpectedly. And because I was off, it was college football season started. So I'm watching college football. It was pretty cool. Everybody's all excited. You got a lot of fans in the stands because last year they didn't really have a season or like a regular season. And so as I'm watching that, I'm just thinking like, man, like here we are just in the United States of America, just enjoying our time, just enjoying our freedoms, enjoying our sports, which other countries would deem to be silly. And I played college football for you guys that don't know. And, whereas on the other side of the world, we had 13 Marines that lost their life trying to, keep people's freedom or get people to freedom. And so I was just thinking, I was like, man, like where are our priorities at as a country? Like we've been bickering and complaining about the dumbest things as a country, and yet we're losing ourselves as a country.
So someone that I follow on social media that is was in the military posted, I guess you would call it a meme, and it said, when a Marine dies, the world doesn't feel it. When a Marine dies, the Marines feel it. And I was like, man, that's so true. Like, it's easy for us to see that and go, thoughts and prayers, or, I feel bad, and then go back to living our life. Cause I'm the same as you, bro. Like Saturday morning, I was I was drafted for my fantasy league. We had like a bunch of officers together. We had some wings. We were cooking it up, and it was just like, life continued. But they definitely made that sacrifice. And have always made that sacrifice of their freedom and, God forbid, their lives for us to live this amazing life that a lot of us take for granted. So you're absolutely right.
My fear is that, we are going to continue to bicker and complain about all this nonsense and continue to enjoy the freedoms that we have without even realize that we're slowly losing our freedoms. And that's my fear
deep.
is like we're going to be lulled to sleep until one day we wake up and we no longer have the freedoms that we had yesterday. And I slowly start to see, I'm slowly seeing that happen. And again, it goes back to, we just take it for granted. The things that we can do, the freedoms that we have, we take for granted. And we need to wake up. We honestly need to wake up as a country because, you know, overnight we can be taken over. Overnight we can, you know, have our rights infringed upon, which we're starting to see. And it's a scary thing. And so as we do these fantasy football leagues, as we watch this Saturday football, let's remember why we can do these things. And then that also means that we also have to draw a line in the sand. That kind of brings me to a topic for today, which will be, you know, this is a very controversial topic. And the reason I say it's controversial because people feel there's a lot of people on different sides of the fence with this next topic or the subject I'm going to bring up. But last week when I was in Washington, I'm there for a recruiting conference, and the whole idea is how can we recruit and retain police officers in this profession. And so as I'm out in Washington, they recently just passed state mandates that are forcing their employees to get vaccinated by, I think it's October 16th. And so because they're forcing their employees to get vaccinated, I was hearing rumors that there might be upwards of 30 to 40% of the police department that is going to be gone. So not only, if you guys aren't aware of this, law enforcement's already been struggling to recruit people. There's a lot of catalysts to that, from the George Floyd incident to at one point in time the economy was booming. So when the economy is booming, law enforcement or, you know, government jobs don't do as well simply because people can make more money without putting their life on the line. So yeah, that going against us. But then you also have a lot of laws changing, and then now you have this whole mandate. And so for me, my personal take on this whole mandate of vaccines is it goes beyond the vaccine, I guess you can say. I think that the vaccine in some ways does help people. I've heard that it lessens the symptoms that you have if you get COVID-19 and things like that. So I think there is value behind some of the vaccines. However, I don't think they've been tried and tested long enough for us to truly know what's good and what's bad. But the deeper side to this whole conversation surrounding the vaccines is that when we start making mandates, when we start forcing people to do things, it kind of opens Pandora's box to what can come in the future. And I think that's what, you know, people don't realize. And some people will say, well, you know, they've been forcing vaccines on people for a long time. And they forced vaccines on military personnel. And back in the day, I know when I was coming up, you had to get certain vaccines to go to school, which is still current today. But,
I still need that.
Yeah, but at the same time, they weren't forcing it upon private sector. If you went to private school, you can have exemptions for that. You can get exemptions for certain things. Now these new mandates are surpassing all of these exemptions to where unless you have a legitimate exemption, and even if you have an exemption, they're saying that they're still forcing you to get vaccinated. So for me, I personally think like you're starting to get rid of choices for people. You're starting to get rid of the freedoms that were fought for, so that way we can pick and choose, which is why I think that it's deeper than just, you know, hey, go and get this vaccine. I think it opens Pandora's box to a lot of other stuff, which is why some people are standing their ground and saying, look, like, I don't want to, if I want to get it, I'm going to get it on my terms, not because you're forcing me to get this vaccine.
I'm kind of torn, man. I'm kind of torn between the vaccinations. You know, I understand that, you know, if I run a business, right? Like say I have a restaurant, that it's completely up to me to say, hey, all my employees have to have this vaccination because, you know, X, Y, and Z. Like that's my right as a business owner. So when we talk about freedoms, we have to take into consideration like the right of the owners of these businesses as well. So that's like the caveat to that. And you know, just to kind of play like devil's advocate, if, and you know, this is a big if, right? If COVID was just deadly, right? Like if you got it, you were guaranteed to die. It was like super contagious. I would want mandated vaccines. I would be like, yo, we need to mandate this. Like, we need to stand us in line. We need a head count. We need to go door to door, right? Like, whatever we need to do. I know it might sound crazy, but like, if we were dropping like flies and there was like a group of people who were like, oh, I don't want to get it. Okay, well, you don't got to get it, but you got to go over this way because, we don't want it over here, right? Like that. Like, I would appreciate that. So when you think of the virus that way, or the policies to force people to get vaccinated that way, then you have to ask yourself, well, who determines, right? Like, who determines how serious it is, right? Or the potential of the seriousness. So it's tricky, man. And like my wife is in the medical field, and a lot of hospitals are requiring all medical personnel, down to the person that greets you when you walk in the door, all the way up to like the CEO to get vaccinated, or you'll be fired. Now we're vaccinated. I'll just put that out there. I was vaccinated. My wife's vaccinated. But we had a discussion when that was announced. Like, what if she was pregnant and she wasn't vaccinated? Like, what would we do? I don't know if I would feel comfortable with her getting the vaccination if she was pregnant. And apparently that's not an exemption where she's at, right? Like, they're like, we don't care if you're pregnant, you can get this vaccine, which that I don't agree with, right? So I don't know. It's tricky. But what I don't like about the entire thing is it's so politicized. Like, the entire thing is politicized. Like, if you're vaccinated, you clearly view this way. If you're not, then you clearly view it. And it's just like, it doesn't have to be like that, right?
And I think that kind of brings my point up is like, when you force something, it forces people to choose a side.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm getting at is like, when you force something, it's forcing people. It's like the mask. You're forcing people to do this. Now it forces people to pick a side. And if you pick one side or the other, it politicizes it. And for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, I just feel like our government has let us down and manipulated things in so many different ways. And we're seeing it more. And because of that, and because I know the evil, and we can go spiritual on it, but because I know the evil of man, like there's already been talk. I mean, we already know that there's so much talk about how this virus was created in the first place by man. So it's like, on one end, we there's a lot of evidence that shows that this virus was created by man. So man creates a vaccine against, you know what I mean? So for me, it's one of those things where I don't want to put so much, and this is what stands true. I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago on the podcast when I was talking to the lady at that store that was from, I think it was Romania, but she says we're going down the path of too much government, where we're allowing government to control everything that we do, which is, that's not why our soldiers went and fought. They fought so we can have freedom. No doubt about it. There is a place for government. We need society needs government. No doubt about it. But what society doesn't need, society doesn't need too much government. And so that's why how I look at the vaccine side of it is that we become so dependent. And this is the other thing too, is it's also been statistically proven that your odds will increase to beat the virus if you live a healthy lifestyle. But yet we don't promote any of that though. We don't promote eating better. We don't promote, the type of foods you should be eating. You don't promote the type of workouts you should be doing. You know what I mean? These are all things that we can control. You know what I mean? Putting commercials out about going and taking a walk, going and taking a run with your family. Hey, putting down the fast food and maybe putting eating like Billy, eating organic. Like we don't promote those things, but we're promoting putting something in your body as a quick fix, which is not even necessarily fixing the problem. Because right now there's a lot of vaccinated people that are getting COVID. There's a lot of vaccinated people that have died from it, and so. That's why I'm just saying, like, don't take away choice. If you believe in the vaccine, by all means, go make your personal choice and get the vaccine. If you don't believe in the vaccine, then make your personal choice and don't get it. But that's why I think so. Going back to how we got on this topic in the first place is when you mandate stuff, it's forcing people to pick a side, and there are downfalls to that. There are a lot of downfalls to that.
Billy, how you feeling about it?
I'm right along with you guys. It's personal choice. And
Well,
like,
I think I was more personal choice. I think AJ's more like, no, y'all need to get it.
No. I don't think.
well, and AJ, to your point, you said like if it was deadly, like that's a big if. Like, yeah, if people were dropping like flies on the sidewalk, I think people would get it without the mandate. But the thing is, like, even from the beginning, like, oh, don't get masks. Oh, get masks. Don't get masks. Get masks. And then
Yeah.
like, and there's stats where like, not only, but since the beginning of the pandemic in the U.S., like 370 children have died. That's terrible. But that's not a lot when you look at the millions of people here. So when they're trying to mandate this for 12-year-olds, they have it's basically like getting struck by lightning if they're going to die from it. So it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no. I mean it more of a sense as, you know, if I'm a police officer and I'm responding to an active shooter, right? There's an active shooter in a building. I run in the building and I'm telling people, hey, get out. As I'm running by them, I got a shotgun in my hand, right? Get out of the building. There's always going to be that person that's like, well, why? Why do I got to get out?
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
Because there's somebody in here killing people, right? Like, I don't have time to go back and forth with you right now. And my comparison to that story in this is I got to be careful how I say this. I think it's safe to say that very few people in the United States knows what's going on in the fully understands what's going on in the United States, right? So if a virus hits, right, and it has the potential to wipe away and I'm not saying that this is the case, right? Like, so don't you know, right? I already know where this is going. But, you know, we live in a hypothetical world, right? Say a virus hits and it has the potential to wipe away millions of people a year, 2 years after they get it, right? Some people are going to die in between, but say a year or 2 years after they get this virus, it's going to start wiping people away. There's going to be effects, you know, people are not going to be able to have kids, deformities, all of this, right? Like, it's just going to get ugly. As the government, I think it would be safe to say, hey, we're just going to mandate a vaccine because it's really, it's a bad virus. We're not going to tell you, you know what I mean? So I guess what I'm saying is, like, I know that I don't understand everything. And I'm not saying I fully just trust the government. Like, oh yeah, I'll get the vaccine. But
I just feel like there's like a lot of fear mongering going on. Like, especially,
100%,
and that's the
100%
thing.
there is.
And honestly, man, I had to remind myself the other day that where do I put my faith and trust in the Lord? Seriously.
That's it, right? Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. Yep.
And I'm not trying to say it because God gave us minds to create medicine. No doubt about it. So I'm not that guy that's like, oh, I'm never going to take any medicine because my faith is in God that he'll heal me without the medicine. No, I realize that God gave us minds to create medicines to help us out. But at the same time, I can't be riddled with so much fear that I don't want to go out my house. Or if I'm standing next to somebody who doesn't have a vaccine or is not wearing their mask, I'm going to be so afraid that I'm not going to live my life. And I think everything now, I mean, literally, as we're sitting here, I get a notification on my phone from CNN. Hospitals are being pushed to their limits treating COVID-19 patients. Five states are nearly out of ICU beds. So we're seeing that this is on a regular. Like, we're getting these updates on our phones every hour.
Yeah. You want to hear something?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you want to hear something like even like creepy or so, I told you we had our draft this past Saturday. So there was I don't know, probably 10 of us in the living room. We got the big screen hooked up. It's like a live draft. We all got our laptops, pieces of paper, right? It's the real deal, right? So one of the supervisors that I work with, he's in the draft, and he's not a tech guy, but he's got 2 phones because of the position of his job, right? And we're talking about the guy's house that we're in, because there's a beautiful house. It's like really tall, like vaulted ceilings. And he's like, yeah, my 2nd story gutters got some stuff clogged in them, and I had to like put a GoPro up there and like look around, and then I had to like flush it out because there was like a bird's nest up there. So like 10 minutes later, that supervisor, who wasn't even talking about the gutters, he was just in the room, opens his phone, and he was like, man, what? And he's like, I've never looked at gutters or in my life. And he's like, look what just popped up on my phone. It's an ad for gutter cleaners, like gutter cleaning services. He was like, I haven't turned this phone on. Like, it's just been sitting on the couch this entire time. So we're like, yeah, that's a little creepy. So then someone jokes about like car maintenance or something. I forget what it was, but like we just kept saying the word over and over again, like within like the next hour or within an hour, right? They'd be like, oh yeah, car maintenance. Oh, my car needs fixed. Oh, I might get a new car. And somebody else will say it. And he picks up his phone and he starts scrolling and he like shows us his phone. And sure enough, it's like auto repairs.
Bro.
So, you know, we're definitely being fed some,
well, that's,
some
and that's what I'm saying. So you're fed on a regular, fed all this fear.
Yeah.
And then what does that fear do? It actually turns you away. Like it should turn you back to God, to Christ, but it's not. It's making you live in this fear. And so that's my biggest thing is like we got to be careful. I mean, this is a true story. I mean, I was reading an article the other day that was talking about how Apple is going to be looking at or scanning your pictures to see what your pictures are.
For child, yeah. That came,
Now, I will say it is for now.
So the whole story.
Yeah, so the whole story is for child pornography, which I'm all about. I'm all about. No doubt about it. But the mere fact that we have capability of doing that is what freaks me out.
Yeah, because then they start making a list. Oh, look, he was at the firing range. Let's put him on
that's where it goes, and that's kind of where it goes. Is what was created for a good cause slowly starts being manipulated for evil reasons. You know what I mean? Like people can start using that now. Oh, this guy was supposed to be at his house because he was in quarantine. And he left the house. His pictures show that. You know what I mean? And they're doing that in Australia. I saw surveillance track a guy that had COVID-19 out of his house, and they went and found that dude, arrested him, and then fined him. So my point is like, yeah, it's created for child pornography, but now that you have access to my pictures, so anyways, we can go down the rabbit hole. I don't want to go too far.
That's what I was gonna say. Cause we could.
But anyways, getting back to the whole point was, as I'm out in Washington, you know, they have a slew of issues going on regarding, you know, the recruiting and retention. So it also brought me to another point to bring up today is, as far as policing is concerned, have we moved forward since the death of George Floyd, or are we moving backwards? That's a broad brush, but
it is.
I think it's worth talking about.
I'm gonna say we've absolutely moved forward. Absolutely move forward. And here's why I'm going to say this. I know there's so many people listening to this right now. Like, how can you say that? No one's working right now and blah, blah, blah. When I say we, I don't mean we as police officers. I mean we as people, like collectively. And of course I could only speak firsthand from what I know, right? Like what's going on in Central Ohio, like where I work. It's love. It is love. Like, so we put together a Stop the Violence Friday Night Lights basketball league, right? Every Friday, it was me and a member of the community that I serve, right? Like we worked hand in hand, and it was a super successful event. Between the hours of the event every Friday, crime dropped like 80%, because it just drew in so many people. People knew the police were there. It was just a vibe, right? So this past Friday was our championship game, all right? So me and Tone, that's the guy that I've been working with to help organize this. I called him last Monday. I'm like, we got to make this big, man. Like, I want to promote it. Like, how are we going to do this? He's like, all right, so before the championship game, let's do CPD versus teacher in a basketball game since it's back to school. I'm like, ooh, that's dope. And I'm like, let's try to get like backpacks full of school supplies. We do a school drive. He's like, that's dope. He's like, I'll try to get some shoes too. And we could give them shoes. That way they're fresh to go back to school. I'm like, oh, that's dope. And hey, the Lord literally spoke to me and was like, hey, don't forget about me. Like, you know, I'm the reason that you've done all this. So I'm like, hey, we need to open this up in like prayer and worship. Like we have to do that. And he was 100% on board. I reached out to a local church here, and not that it matters, but you'll see where I'm going with this. A predominantly black church. I reach out to them that is very close to the area that I work. Told them what's going on. They jumped on board. They're like, we're going to send a worship team. We're going to send both of our head pastors, and whatever else you need. We're going to bring some congregation members. And when I tell you, it was such a dope event. We packed an auditorium. We had the worship team come out, sing a song. People were raising their hands, worshiping. All the kids that were going to get school supplies
cool.
and shoes were in there listening. All these people who may have never heard a worship song or had a prayer day in their lives were like in there. And then afterwards, we were like led in prayer and then like a small word afterwards. But it was such a dope environment because there were police officers in uniform, out of uniform, community members, convicted felons, people who are just down on their luck, who can't afford to buy their kids school supplies. And we were just laughing, taking pictures, hugging, high-fiving, having a good time. And afterwards, I call one of my buddies that I work with, and I'm just telling him about it. I'm like, man, like this was such a dope event. And he's like, you have like so many of these stories, because I'm always calling him and telling him these stories because he's very negative, right? Like he sees the profession through like a very negative lens. Like, so many people hate us. I don't want to go out here because I go to prison, blah, 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 right? So I'm constantly like feeding him these stories. And he's like, AJ, you have like so many of these stories. It's truly starting to change the way that I look at the profession. And I challenge you as the listener, if you're in law enforcement, to do the same. Like, take a step back and look at what your last week looked like. Like, how many people paid for your dinner, paid for your lunch, or offered to, or waved at you? Like the small gestures. I'm not even talking about the big ones where people walk up and thank you, or you get a not a "you're needed," but a "we see you" card put on your cruiser, or you know what I mean? There's so much. Like, I think we are moving forward in a sense of togetherness. Now, there are a lot of things, and I know I'm taking over right now, but this is my jam right now because I'm excited about this. Like, I'm super excited because I do feel like we're moving the right way as a profession. Now, as the profession goes, I do think that we're going to have to slowly and carefully start getting back to working because the people are paying right now. There's a reason the homicide rates are at an all-time high. There's a reason violent crimes are at an all-time high. My truck got broke into at special duty last Thursday. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we not exempt from it either. Like, people are paying for the lack of police proactivity. Now, I'm not saying that that's the police's fault, right? Like, we all know why this is happening. So there is going to have to get to a point where we start getting back slowly and carefully. But aside from that, the people are backing us. Like, I need you to hear me when I say that the people are backing us. I'm getting so many messages like from people all over the country. We love what you're doing. The numbers are at an all-time high. Like, on my Facebook page last week was viewed over 1.3 million times. Like, nothing but positive interaction. So like, the stuff is getting out there. We're moving the right way together. It's just internally, what are we going to do to change the proactivity aspect of it?
I'm not going to lie, bro. You honestly changed my opinion and outlook because when I asked that question, I was going to say we've gone backwards, but I wasn't looking at it through that lens. And I feel it kind of goes back to my point earlier in the earlier discussion about the fear mongering. If you turn on TV or turn on the news or Instagram or Twitter or you name it, you see so much negative stuff. But that negative stuff sadly is overshadowing what's actually really occurring in these neighborhoods. And what's really occurring in these neighborhoods are really good positive interactions. And I will tell you, same thing as AJ. I've had so many people, tell me thank you, want to pay for me. I mean, you name it. And in the city I work at, we've always gotten pretty good love from our community, but even more so. But if you pay attention to Instagram or whatever, you would feel like it's the opposite. But I also agree with AJ from this standpoint. We do need to get back to, I think where we have regressed is we have regressed in policies. We have regressed in a lot of the legislation that's being passed in the name of police reform. I think police reform is a good thing. I've said that before, but it's a certain type of police reform that we need. We can't go from, it's almost like you went from one extreme to the next extreme. You went from more policing to no policing. Like, we got to find out what that middle ground is. And sadly, there are communities paying for it. Like you said, there are homicide rates are at all-time highs right now. When you're tying the hands of police officers to where they can't go out there and do pursuits or foot pursuits, you know what I mean, because of police reform, or when you can't do neck restraints. And I'm telling you now, from training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I mean, one of the most valuable things that I can do is put you in a control hold and maybe hold you around your neck or whatever it may be. And I know I can do that without killing you simply because I've been training that. Now, don't get me wrong. So that's a good example. As opposed to, let's just think about this for a second. As opposed to banning neck restraints as a way of police reforms, why can't we train officers to do neck restraints the proper way through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Same thing, same police reform, just a different way of going about it. So, perception. Because by you banning a neck restraint or chokehold, quote unquote, now if an officer finds himself in a situation to where a chokehold or a neck restraint may have helped save that person that he was going up against, now they choose to utilize their firearm because they couldn't utilize the neck restraint or control hold, and so they felt their life was in danger, so now they took the life of another person. Whereas if that police reform looked like, hey, instead of banning this, we are going to mandate police officers go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and do some other type programs, so that way you know exactly how to do a proper neck restraint as opposed to just banning it altogether. Same concept. So I think that's just an example of what we should be doing as a country, is reevaluating police reform to do it the right way. So I think we have regressed. When I was in Washington last week, these guys were telling me that if you are caught with a hardcore drug, so i.e. methamphetamine, cocaine, or something like that, if you're caught with it, if you say, hey, this ain't mine, these ain't my pants, then they can't charge you with possession of it anymore. Crazy. They can't. You can't charge that person with possession. So you book the methamphetamine as found property or whatever it is, and you don't even charge that person. And so the crazy thing is, I can't tell you. It is a true story when somebody says these ain't my pants. People tell me that all the time. All the time. So now it's almost like we're encouraging people to lie to get out of something that they did wrong, which is now you're moving away from accountability. And we've talked about accountability, I don't know, 100 times on this podcast. Like at what point do we hold people accountable for their mistakes? Like there needs to be accountability for that.
This is the exciting thing about that, because I agree with what you're saying, right? Like a lot of policies that have been implemented or that are being seriously considered right now are like just flat out like outrageous. But the exciting thing about that is, I already shared stories where the people are backing us, right? And not just the people, generally speaking, the people who were portrayed to hate us the most over the past year and a half are backing us. So what's going to happen is they're starting to see why their neighborhoods look the way that they do, right? Like, why are there dope boys on every corner? Why do you have to leave your doors unlocked at all times? Why are home invasions at an all-time high? Why can't I let my kid out to play without me supervising them? They're starting to see the why behind that. And if there's anything that we have learned over the past year and a half, the people have the power, man. So together, if the people stand up and go, hey, we need the police to be the police again. That's what we need. Now, us as law enforcement officials, miss me with I didn't hear an apology. I didn't hear a sorry for the past year. Like, you're not going to. You know what I mean? I'm gonna just put it out there. Like, I'm not gonna say that you don't deserve it, but you're not gonna see it. And we've had people here almost demand apologies from like our mayors and city councils and whatever. It's just like, you're not gonna get it, and if you do, chances of it being genuine is slim to none. So do you even want it? For us, we need to focus on the future. And if the people stand up and start to back us and say, we need the police back, we're going to support them, these policies are outrageous, then you know what we need to do? We need to link arms with them and go, you're right, let's go together. Because I posted a bunch of pictures from this last Friday at the basketball league. And the caption, everywhere I posted it said, together we are unstoppable. And it's
I love
true. It's so true. Like, you know, what happened over the past year and a half is groups were divided, right? If you were a Democrat and Republican, you were divided. If you were a police officer and if you were a minority, you were divided. If you were a masker, an anti-masker, you were divided. Vaccine, non-vaccine, you were divided. And it got to the point where there were so many different groups of people that thought the same way that they attacked. And they caught us all off guard, and they controlled the narrative, and we collectively suffered from it. But now what you're starting to see is people starting to come together. And those pictures that I posted on my social media is exactly that, right? Like once again, uniform, non-uniform, white, black, wealthy, not wealthy, coming together, and we're going to see it, and you're going to see these people start to go, well, hold on. I want the police in my community. What can I do to get the police in my community? I want them working. I want them out here walking my street every single day, every single minute. That's the exciting part for me. But we have to embrace. Step one, we have to see it. If we don't see what's really going on, then we're gonna miss this entire opportunity that we have in front of us. Now I feel like I'm placed in a very unique position because I missed that year, right? Like I missed the majority of that year where we were just being stomped on and kicked and spit on, metaphorically and physically speaking, right? But it's exciting too because I bring that new outlook, right? So I forget where I was just going with this, but step one, you have to see it. Step one, you have to see that the people back us. And step two is you have to move with the movement. You have to go with the movement.
Yep, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And so what I want to do is I want to encourage you guys all today, stay out, get rid of the people on your social media pages that just push negative stuff. Get rid of them, unfollow them. Like I want to challenge you to press the unfollow button because that the reason you need to do that is because those people are the ones that's bringing your spirit down. Seriously. I'm challenging you to press the unfollow button just because I know sometimes, we want to see what's going on in the world, but we also, what you don't realize is that it's making you, whether consciously or unconsciously, become more irritated and bringing your vibes down the rest of the day. So, you know what? I encourage you, press the unfollow button. This other thing is don't be overtaken by fear. Don't be overtaken by fear. Right now, we live in a country where everything you turn on the TV or whatever, it's causing you to fear life in general. It makes you feel like, honestly, that you don't want to walk outside, whether because you're going to get COVID-19, whether because some other country is going to drop bombs on us, whatever it is. We live in a country right now where it's instilling fear in us every single day. And it's evident. I can go on Instagram right now and find somebody that is pushing out more fear, and why I should be afraid. Stop being afraid. You got to realize the two things that every single human being have in common is every human being has a birthday and every single human being has a death day. Every single one of us has those two things in common. We cannot avoid our death day. And the only one that knows when we're going to die and how we're going to die is our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So if he brings you home because of COVID-19, he brings you home because of COVID-19. If he brings you home because you died in a traffic collision, he brings you home because you died in a traffic collision. But the one thing I encourage you right now is if you do not have a relationship with the Lord Jesus, I'm telling you, you need to get one. And I tell you that I'm not saying that I'm not trying to make this a religious podcast. I'm not. I want you guys to understand something. But what is important to me is that you know where you're going as soon as you die. Hell and heaven is a very real place. Hell and heaven is a very real place. And you don't get second chances. You don't die one day and be like, oh God, man, let me get one more chance so I can redo it. No, you don't get a second chance. And so the Bible tells you to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. But if you're not present with the Lord, you are going to hell. And so my point is the reason I bring this whole point up is because of this. When we talk about COVID-19, when we talk about the wars going on and things like that, like it would be a tragedy if I died, no doubt about it. But I'm telling you right now, I do not love earth more than I'm gonna love heaven. That's just facts. It's just facts. So that's why, yeah, it would suck for my wife. It would suck for my kids. But my wife and kids know exactly where I'm going to go. And the moment they pass, they know exactly they're going to be with daddy again. So the thing is that I don't want to be so bogged down by fear that I can't live my life. I don't want you to live your life in fear. And the people that are pushing these fear on you don't know where they're going, which is why they're pushing it out. They don't know if they're going to heaven or not. You don't get to heaven by doing all these good works and saying I'm a good person. No, it don't work that way. So I'm not sitting here to preach to you guys, but I'm telling you right now, if you open your Bible and you turn on any channel right now, you can see that there are signs of the times all over right now where good is bad and bad is good. There are so many things right now telling us right now whether when God is coming back, and I'm not trying to be, some of y'all are going to be like, oh, he's a conspiracy. You know what? I'm sorry if this is not for you. I appreciate you hanging with me for so long. I appreciate you guys subscribing to our podcast. But if this is not for you, I wish you nothing but the best of luck. But if you've been with us for this long and you've been rocking us for this long and you trust me enough, trust me to know this, that you need to get your life right with God. Because if you get your life right with God, I guarantee you that fear will go away. You will not be afraid to die. You will realize that if you die today, shoot, I'm going straight to heaven. Mm-hmm. Instantaneously. You will not live a life of fear. And that's how we get beyond this. So I would be doing a disservice if I didn't tell you that. This is truth. This is reality. And you will not steer me away from it. So again, if you've been rocking with us for this long and you can't get with this, I appreciate it. If you feel like you got to leave the podcast and go somewhere else, understandable. If you feel like, hey, you know what, I'm good with it. I don't necessarily agree with Ryan on this, but I'm still going to listen to the podcast. Great. I appreciate you. We can agree to disagree. But if you're somebody that's like, you know what, no, something has been tugging at my heart and I do need to get right with God, this message is for you. Because you should not be living that life of fear.
Two things on exactly what you're talking about. The first of which, I don't know how people get through life, let alone this past year and a half, without God. I don't. People ask me all the time, like, man, especially during my presentations, man, AJ, you've been through X, Y, and Z, and you're still going through this, and you're still dealing with this, and you have such a positive outlook on life, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have a positive outlook on life. I have a positive outlook on death. Because I know what's going to happen, right? Like, picture this. Picture I'm a billionaire, right? Like I got all the money in the world. Money is not an issue for me. And I tell you, Ryan, Ryan, if you go through 5 years, the hardest year, these next 5 years are going to be so hard. Like every day is just going to be excruciating. You're going to experience pain, both mentally and physically, spiritually, you name it. It's going to be a rough 5 years. But I tell you what, if you get through it, and whatever, by the end of those 5 years, I'm gonna give you more money than you can imagine. You know what? Those 5 years, I'm gonna be going through this pain with a smile on my face. You know why? Because I'm promised financial freedom at the end of it, right? Like I know what I'm getting. This is the thing about like being a Christian and a believer is like, I'm promised way more than that. At death, right? Like I'm promised in eternity in heaven. I get to see my grandma. I want to talk to Noah about the ark, right? Like I got questions, bro. Like I'm gonna meet up with people in the Bible. Like, hey, real quick, me Shadrach, hey Shadrach, who is really quick? Which one of y'all, right? Like I got questions, bro, and I'm excited about that. But like that's what we're promised. So like, when you see a believer with a smile on their face, or if they're going through a difficult time, they may be handling it different than what you're used to. Like, that's why, like, don't get me wrong. Like, we're going to go through the rain and we're going to go through the storms. There's going to be times that suck. And, like death is never easy. Like we're going to mourn the physical loss of our loved ones here. But like at the end of the day, when like it's all said and done, I'm good. I'm good knowing where I'm going.
Yep.
And the second thing is God is moving. And I don't know if you believe that right now, Ryan, or Billy, or you as the listener or watcher of this podcast. The number one hip hop and R&B influencer in the world right now just put out a over hour long Christian album. His name is Kanye West. Every single one of his songs talks about Jesus, God. He's unapologetically a Christian. Hear me out. the number one music influencer in the world. We talking generally speaking right now. And I don't know he's number one, but he's definitely top two, okay? Justin Bieber is unapologetically Christian now. Like, he's going on tour with Maverick City. There are clips of him on YouTube sitting in a chair with his side turned to the audience, and he's got both hands up, praising, singing, "How great is my God." He's worshiping, he's praying afterwards. He's unapologetically Christian. All right. I had a young lady walk up to my car the other day, and she had a driver with her, young female. And I'm messing with the lady that walked up to my car. I'm like, "Where'd your friend go? She don't like the police?" And she's like, "She about to go in there and read a Bible." And I told her, I said, "Hey, don't play like that. Like, you know, we could joke about a lot of things, but don't joke with her going in and reading a Bible." She's like, "I'm dead serious." I'm like, "Call her out here." She calls her out here. And this girl, like, was like hood. Like, she was like, "What's up, man?" Dap me up, right? I'm like, "Oh, this is my homie right here, right? I can connect with you. We got the same swag." And I was like, "Was you really in there reading the Bible?" And she was like, "Oh, I don't play with the word." And I was like, "Okay." I said, Proverbs 13:3. And she was like, "Huh?" And I'm like, "Call your grandma," because she said she was in a reading a Bible with her grandma. Her grandma picks up. And I said, "He who keeps his mouth shall keep his life, but he who opens wide his mouth shall receive destruction." And she was like, "Do you know the word, or are you living the word?" And I was like, "Well, I'm trying to do both." And she was like, "Okay, well, let me pray for you." And then we spent an hour and a half at a shooting scene. I'm on guard duty at a shooting scene. I'm guarding a body, having a conversation with these two young black females in a cruiser in uniform with my white partner about Jesus Christ. God is moving right now. Whether you want to admit it or not, God is moving right now.
And let me tell you, on the opposite end of that, just so you can tell you that God is moving, is because what AJ just shared with you is all positive. But do you know who's being persecuted the most around this world? Is Christians. You look in Afghanistan?
Yep.
These terrorists are killing Christians. You can look at all these other countries. These terrorists are coming after Christians. Why do you think that they're doing that? There's so many other religions in the world, but why are they choosing to kill Christians? So my point to you is that right there should give you proof that there's something about being a Christian. And so I'm going to end this up, and I'm going to wrap it up like this. Some of you guys are probably listening. "Okay, Ryan, you're saying this. You say I need a relationship with God. What does that mean? How difficult is it?" Let me tell you, it's so simple. One of my favorite athletes is Tim Tebow. He wasn't that good on the field, I'll tell you that. But the reason why he was one of my favorite athletes, because he was unapologetic about who his faith is. He every game that he would play, he would have his little, on his eye black, it would say John 3:16. For this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only son so that everyone who believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. That is the promise. So again, I feel like I'm preaching right now, but I need to tell you this because we started this podcast talking about all these things going on in the world, and it's creating fear. But the way you get beyond that fear is by having a relationship with Jesus Christ. And all you have to do is just say, "You know what, God? I accept that you sent your son, Jesus Christ, to die on that cross for me, and I am sorry for all of my sins, and I accept you as my Lord and Savior." That's it. That's all you got. You say that simple thing, and you truly believe it in your heart, you are now what we call a believer, a Christian, and now you can move forward. It doesn't mean that you're not going to stumble. It doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes. You're still going to make mistakes.
Oh, it's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard. And trust me, and it's going to get harder. But the reality is that when you take your last breath, you will be in heaven. And so if you can ask yourself, I want you, if you're listening to this podcast, ask yourself this one question. Are you certain that you will be going to heaven as soon as you die? Are you absolutely certain? And if you're like, well, I think I'm a pretty good man, you're not certain. You need to ask yourself that question. Are you 100% positive that when you die, you are going to be going to heaven? Because I'm sure most people believe in heaven or hell. Even atheists believe in heaven and hell. So if you are absolutely 100% certain that you're going to heaven, then great. We need to be better. But if you're not certain that you're going to heaven, that means you need to accept Christ as your Savior, and we can all move forward together. So, man, I felt really called to bring that up. I had to be and I was not. And let me tell y'all, I was not planning on going there.
Nah, we never talk about that.
I was never planning on going there, but I feel such a conviction right now because we cannot live a life of fear. We cannot live a life of fear. That's not what God created. The only person we should fear, the only thing we should fear is Lord Jesus himself, and it's a healthy fear, not a bad fear. It's a healthy fear, meaning that we give him all authority and control over our life. That's all that is. So I'm going to pray with y'all real quick for all the people that are no longer going to listen to this podcast because it got too religion.
We're going to pray for y'all too.
I'm going to pray for you too. I want you to know I love you and no hard feelings. If this was too much for you, no hard feelings. But for those of you guys that have enough courage to stick with us and to trust, don't trust me, actually, trust God. Trust God. Don't trust me, trust God. But for those of y'all have enough courage to stick with us, every podcast is not going to be about this, but I needed to share my heart with y'all. If you guys have enough courage, I want to pray for you guys right now because we all got to get through this together. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I come before you and I just thank you for this podcast. I thank you for allowing me and AJ and Billy to be a beacon of hope. And I just ask that you would allow people not to see me, AJ, or Billy, but to see you through us, Lord. Allow them to get filled with your spirit right now. And there's people listening to this podcast right now, and I know somebody's going to email me or send AJ email or Billy, and they're going to tell us after this podcast that they got right with Christ. And so whoever that person is right now, whoever is, you're tugging at their heart right now, I just ask that they would pray this simple prayer that, Lord, I've messed up. I'm a sinner and I am not perfect, but I know that you sent your one and only son to die for my sins on that cross. And now I believe in you. I believe that you are in control. And I now want to give you control over all of my life and everything that I do, every decision I make, everything that comes in front of my face, I want to give you and I surrender my life over to you. And so now I accept you as my Lord and Savior moving from this day forward. And I know that whenever I take that last breath, that the Bible says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. If you prayed that prayer right then and there, you are now saved. You are now you have a guarantee of going to heaven, and we will all meet together in heaven at the pearly gates with one another. But it doesn't stop there, y'all. While we're on this earth, we have a mission. The Great Commission says to go out there and make disciples. Christians are being persecuted like crazy right now. They're having their heads cut off. They're being hung. I saw a video the other day of a man being hung from a helicopter in Afghanistan. People are being killed like no other. So we need to go out there and be a beacon of light, a beacon of hope, a beacon of joy, and realize and point people back to Jesus Christ. We love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And if I would not share this message with you guys if I didn't love you that much. So go out there, enjoy your week, enjoy the good earth that we have. Let's not be bogged down by fear, and let's live a life of hope. We love y'all, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace.